All right, good morning, everyone. Can we back this up a bit? I can't do this. This is too close. What's I mean, I love you guys, but come on. What's that? Does it? All right. All right. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. It's going to be a pretty short one today. Well, we'll see what Raymond has to talk about, but one thing. Okay. We got a bunch of announcements and stats, and not a lot to talk about beyond that. It was a fairly quiet week, but once again, Meadowtowne Golf Day will be June 24th. I don't know, has an email gone out yet for the invitation? Yeah. Okay. I tend to ignore anything golf, so I don't recall seeing anything, but because I've never played, I don't know how to play. No. Yeah. That's about it. But that's going on. And oh, just so you know, I believe what we're raising money for is the hospice that's being constructed in Halton Region in Georgetown. So Meadowtowne was a big part of getting that started in terms of helping with the purchase of the land and stuff. So it's something that is really near and dear to Alex's heart. I think it's going to have 10 or 11 beds, which is doesn't sound like a lot, but it's literally millions of dollars that have gone into this. So it's definitely for a good cause. Realtor Quest, I'm not sure if anybody remembers this. Last year was the one where Trevor Noah was the guest, the keynote speaker. This year, I believe it's Martha Stewart. Yeah. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that's happening May 15th and 16th. If you're a member of TRREB, it doesn't cost you anything, just your TRREB membership. So if you haven't signed up, I believe there is still time to sign up. It was actually a good morning, Farah. It was a pretty cool event last year. I don't tend to go for the guest speakers, but there was some interesting like technology and stuff that was there as well. It's massive, like way bigger. Last year was the first one I ever attended, and it was unnervingly big. There was easily 10,000 people there. Um, okay, upcoming in May, May 2nd, Kira and Alex will be hosting a session here for health and longevity bites. It's more health and energy related. And then May 23rd, Imran Hassan will be coming to talk about building relationships through community involvement and engagement. If the name Imran Hassan sounds familiar. He's the current chair for the Peel Crime Stoppers, which is what we were doing at what we were raising money for at the Drake on St. Patty's Day. But so he's the current chair for Peel Crime Stoppers, VP of Eden Food for Change, which we've been volunteering for many years. He's director for both the Mississauga Arts Council and the Canadian Forces Liaison Council, and he's the former chair of the Mississauga Board of Trade. So he's all about networking and community involvement. Really interesting guy. I think that will be a really interesting discussion. Okay, so a lot of you were not in the industry or not with Meadowtowne in 2016. In 2016, there was a new Bill 168 and Bill 132 about workplace violence, harassment, and discrimination in the workplace. We have a revision to it. So sometime this week, I don't know if it'll be as early as today or not, you're all going to be receiving, well, not you, Raymond, but you'll all be receiving something via email. You all need to review this, and we will need to get acknowledgement that it has been reviewed and understood. And if you do not acknowledge it, I will hunt you down, and I will sit down and read it with you if need be. Oh yeah, I will definitely harass you for this. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it's been 8 years since this was sent out. It was mandatory across well, all companies had to provide it. Good morning. Had to provide it 8 years ago, but a lot of us are a lot newer since then. So watch for that in your email. Also watch in the email, I think it's coming out today or tomorrow. There's a new referral program, mostly for testimonials. So the way it's going to work is it's not going to cost you anything. It's through 121 QA, which is they're a company that does a lot of surveys, corporate surveys, how to, what you're looking for. We've done it every 2 years here to see what you love and hate about your manager and the brokerage itself and what we can do better. So the way it's going to work is our admin team will send out this survey to your clients if you wish. It doesn't cost you anything. We aren't going to be reading the reviews. Any reviews that you get will come back to you. So you'll get a notification that there's a review. You can sign in. You'll all have a dashboard. And if it's a 4 or 5 star review and you'd like it published, it's a click of a button and it'll go right to your Google reviews. So it's a really good way to build up your reviews and testimonials. And we will only publish the good ones, but it'll also be published to your profile on the Meadowtowne site. So it's the reason why it's good to use it is right here, the 4 steps: survey at firm. So they'll get it once the deal goes firm. That's probably when they're going to be most excited. And asking if clients are satisfied builds trust with those clients. And then 20% of clients will make 70% of your referrals. And so it's a good way to spread the word. And 9 out of 10 prospects, when you're talking to somebody, they will check your agent profiles, whether it's through us or Googling your name. So it's really good way to build up your own SEO on your own Google searches. So this should be coming out soon. And when it does, I would encourage you all to opt in, unless you don't think you provide good service. Then don't worry about it. I believe it's going to be active next month. So, but you'll be getting some information via email, I think today or tomorrow. So we'll do the harassment thing first, and then this. And if you're interested in a better explanation than what I just gave, scan that QR code. It'll take you to a 2-minute video, and I'll send the slide deck out so you could, there's a link to the video as well. So it's a 2-minute video on the Meadowtowne site that you'll be able to watch to get more information about it. Any questions about the announcements? Oh, that was easy. Okay, stats. Showings, again, another good week for showings. So last week, you remember we had that like 25% increase, another 12% increase this week. New listings increased by a little bit more than the amount of showings, but days on market drops, not quite a full day, but they've dropped from 19.5 to a little over 18.5. In Mississauga, showings were up 4% compared to the previous week. Mississauga had a massive increase last week, whereas Halton and Milton didn't have as much. So to be up from that big increase is still good. New listings in Mississauga increased by about 8%. Days on market had a much larger drop. We dropped about 8 days. So that's, and 72% of appointments over the last week were for properties over $1 million. So I don't know if that was a change in pricing strategy or just buyers are a little bit more buyers are coming out, but way more appointments were booked for properties over $1 million than the week before. I wouldn't mind, picking the brains of Amon and Raymond to see where, like, are people being pre-approved for more, or like the higher net worth people coming out of the woodwork, or you're not quite seeing that yet? Yeah. Yeah. Good. Are you seeing something similar? Yeah. 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 Did you have to give up your swimming lesson?
No.
Good. Yeah.
My kids
I'm gonna put,
no,
no. But when he's ready, I'm gonna drag him into deep water this summer. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good for you. Okay, sales. Sales were down by 6 units in Milton, but Milton had that big increase last week. In Halton Hills, sales doubled over the last week. So Halton Hills, Georgetown has been really kind of sleepy the last few weeks. And last week they came alive. I don't know what happened, but the interesting thing was the appointments in Halton Hills were actually down a little bit. But people are making these quick decisions and buying quickly. In Mississauga, freehold units went up by 12 units. Condo sales went down a little bit, but overall we had more sales in Mississauga than we did the week before. So WOW, just in case I'm using too many acronyms, does not mean wow, it's week over week. So units units selling at or below asking prices actually increased. So we're seeing fewer units selling below asking. No, wait, sorry. We're seeing more units selling below asking than the week before, but there's still more sales. So the sales are still quite strong, especially under that under 2 million. That's where we're seeing the most competition, not surprisingly. Oh, sorry, I forgot to delete last week's Niagara stats. But I'll correct that when I send out the slideshow. But showings increased by 1% in Niagara. New listings were down by 6%. And unit sales decreased week over week. Most of that was in the condo market. So the freehold market in Niagara was still quite strong, but the condo market was significantly weaker than the week before.
There's a way to know how many of the brokerages in Niagara have broker bank or not.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll see if I could find out for you. As you head into Niagara, they seem to be split between broker bay and showing time. Like there's a lot more on showing time, but
because this is broker based stats, right?
The sales is not broker based stats, just the showing stats. So the first anything appointment related we pull from broker bay, but anything sales we will pull from ITSO. Yeah. Months of inventory, pretty stable for the most part until we get far enough west, but you can see everything either stayed the same or is within 0.1 months of inventory for condo market across Toronto. For Peel, again, very stable. Mississauga months of inventory creeped up by 0.2, but still well in that seller's market range. Halton, again, everything remained between 0.1, 0.2. So there was a lot of stability until we get to Hamilton and Niagara. So both those regions went up quite a bit for condo inventory. Both went up about half a month worth of inventory just within the last week. So a lot more condos coming to the market in those areas recently. I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into that. I just didn't have a chance, but I don't know if there was any new condos registered. Because I don't know if you remember a few months ago, there was a couple new condos in Oakville that just flooded the market and jacked that months of inventory. I don't know if that's what happened there or if it's just some sellers came out of the woodwork. Maybe they got their mortgage renewals versus 3 years ago. Freehold, Toronto, still very tight market. Toronto West is just hovering around that 2 months of inventory for the last few weeks. Toronto East still well below 2 months, and Toronto Center hovering around 3 months of inventory. Yep.
This represents all price levels. So freehold all the way up to luxury.
Yep.
Luxury.
Yep. Yeah, I just look at straight freehold. We can drill that down as much or as little as you need. I just give you a broad strokes picture. But if you're looking in a specific neighborhood or specific market, I can just let me know and I can run those numbers for you. There's just too many variables for me to put them all in a meeting every week. Peel, so Mississauga dropped 0.1, Brampton went up 0.2, so still quite a lot of stability in the months of inventory. Halton, except for Halton Hills, which I always put in a separate slide now, Halton seems to consistently be the tightest market in terms of inventory. Mississauga or Oakville's a little bit higher, but Milton and Burlington still under 2 and have been for a couple months now. Georgetown or Halton Hills had a really steep drop, which, if you remember, they went from 12 sales 2 weeks ago to 24 last week. So their inventory just kind of wasn't replaced on the shelf. So they're inching closer to that 2 months of inventory mark. And then Hamilton Niagara stayed very consistent on the freehold side. So they had the huge increase on the condo side, but not on freehold. That's it for months of inventory. Any questions about the stats this week? Oh, you guys are either I'm really good at explaining it or you guys are sleepy. Okay, just a couple things I wanted to talk about today. We could get into an open discussion if you want. I want to talk about listing accuracy and the importance of taking ownership of your listing. So sometimes you have to remember that you're doing the data sheets, you're submitting them to us. Sometimes there's, and 2 different people working on the listings before it gets back to you. You need to check them very carefully. We haven't had any real issues here. We've had some back and forth sometimes, but Dion, who came to talk to us a couple weeks ago, she called me last week. She was going into a settlement conference and was asking some questions about how it works and listing accuracy and data sheets. So she was working on a case where there was an agent in Grimsby. This is a very high volume agent. It's actually the broker of record and the owner of the brokerage that was selling it in Grimsby. It was a somewhat rural property, but it was on a septic. And the listing said that they were on municipal sewers. And then he double-ended it. So he brought the buyer in and it wasn't cleared up. And so the buyer was never made aware that that was on septic. Then after closing, it turned out the septic wasn't working and it was almost a $50,000 repair that was going to the buyer. So the buyer, of course, tried to sue everyone and ended up suing the listing agent. The listing agent then blamed his seller and said they're the ones that gave the information and signed off on it. But that's not the way it works. He didn't verify the information. I don't know what the result of the settlement conference was or if it's going to trial. All Dion told me was it went very well for her client. So I don't think that the agent blamed the seller. I think what happened was when an agent gets sued, they call their errors and omissions insurance. It's no longer their case, and the insurer and the insurer's lawyer probably blamed the client at that point.
How do you verify if it's if it's septic or municipal?
So you can check, there's 2 ways to check. The first one is you can check GeoWarehouse, which isn't always accurate, and sometimes it just says NA. But if you purchase a parcel register or the MPAC report, that will tell you what it's on as well. So that's that report that's $32, $33. In this case, I think the agent should have known better. It was a rural property and he just didn't check the data sheet. Yeah, so
It's covered by a cover.
yeah,
Like, it was covered.
yeah.
That was my initial thought. Just walk, you'll see it, but not all.
You can tell where the weeping bed is, where the holding.
You
But not always, right?
Right.
Like you would think that they would be like, okay, yeah, this is the backyard, there's the weeping bed, there's the tank, like they would have that sort of conversation, right? Like it's kind of look at me like,
but
that's it. No, the seller,
yeah.
the seller could be like explaining.
Like, yeah, the buyer, we should have had that conversation. She's walking the property.
Should have,
Right.
but didn't, and now this is where they are. Another similar but unrelated note was I saw this posted in Real Estate Strategies where, and this is something I've been hearing more of. A lot of people that are selling tenanted properties, they know that people don't want to go and see tenanted properties or they don't want to buy tenanted properties. So they just remove them from their list. Some agents right now, they are listing these properties as owner occupied when they're not. So they think it's fine. It's a way of getting exposure. But there has been a few cases recently where they never disclosed that it was actually a tenant there. And maybe it was I don't know if it was a good, clean, tenant that, kept things organized. So, sometimes you say, well, if it looks messy, it's a tenant. It's not always the case. I've got kids, my place is always messy, and I'm not a tenant. But this is something that you could potentially get in a lot of trouble for. I don't think anybody here is doing it, but I am not convinced that this is something that the errors and omissions insurance would cover, because it's not an error, it's not an omission, it's literally lying to get more exposure. So I don't know how they would view it, but I don't think it would be viewed very well. And don't forget, even if you are covered, it's still a $2,500 deductible on your first offense, $5,000 on your second offense, and then it gets to the point that they just won't insure you anymore and you lose your license. It's a board issue for sure. So the board can fine you, but it's also a RICO complaint. You can get in trouble on two fronts. So I don't think anybody here is doing it. If you are, don't tell me, just fix it. But if you're showing properties and you're doing an offer, just make sure to ask if it's tenanted or not. Do it in writing. I know these meetings feel like we're just creating checklists of more work for you, but this is something that seems to become a little bit more prevalent this year. I remember when I got licensed and my first manager was telling me how to do showings and how to do searches and how to book them. And he said to me, at the time we had lots of choice, there was a lot more inventory, but he said to me, don't ever show a tenanted property. All right, that was, and I listened to that until inventory dropped so low you had no choice. But a lot of agents are aware that that's the mentality of some people. So they're just trying to skirt the system to get you into the unit, but it's not good. It's not cool what they're doing. Has anybody here come across this? Okay, good. Okay. And then the other thing, speaking of social media, I know that there's a lot of forums online, especially on Facebook, and some of them actually have the word legal in the forum. They're great forums, especially if it's a lawyer that's answering a question. But what's coming up is a lot of agents, and unfortunately last week I noticed a Meadowtowne agent ask a question in one of these forums. It wasn't the legal discussion group, it was one of the other forums. And they ended up getting a lot of bad advice. So it was regarding a potential mutual release, and the people that were answering the question were not lawyers, and they certainly weren't the client's lawyers, and they were advising the agent to just sign off on it and sell the property again. That's not our place, right? So if somebody doesn't deliver a deposit, and in this case, the buyer lied about delivering the deposit. They said they delivered the deposit to the bank and didn't get a receipt, and then they said that they changed their mind. It was a really weird situation, but it's not our place to say, just sign off on it, we'll sell it again. You need to direct your clients to go to the lawyer. This is one specific example. I'm actually in this job because of this kind of scenario. So the last brokerage I was with, had a ratio of about 1,000 agents per manager, right? So there's no way that those managers could effectively help everyone. And what ended up happening was they created this, it was almost like a Facebook, but it's their business side of Facebook. I think it's called Workplace, where they would have these forums and the agents could go there to look for help. And I noticed that a lot of the agents were giving terrible advice. There were some that were giving good advice and some that were getting terrible advice, but you could never know which one you were getting, especially if you were newer. So I started mentoring some agents that way, and it turned out I enjoyed it and found it fulfilling. And then I started looking for a position like I'm in now, which I never thought I would do. But I actually really like it. But it was because of stuff like this. If you have a legal question or a question about your transaction, don't use a Facebook forum. You have a manager here that knows everything. His name is Oliver, so you can call me and I'll give you his number. But But please, like, if you want to go there for information about like referrals or, you know, I need some help with finding an inspector here, or I've got a question, or how can I do this, or lead generation, great. Do not ask legal questions about your transactions on Facebook. It is a terrible place, and you're asking for trouble. Did I get my point across? Yeah, call Oliver. Okay. Okay. Any questions about that at this point? No. Okay. So I don't have any case study to talk about today. So I'm just going to open the floor before we invite Raymond up. Is there anything that any of you would like to discuss? Donna, you look like you have something on your mind. You got something. Come on, give me something. Charles, anything? Nothing?
That's it.
Yeah. On the golf course. Okay, well then, Raymond, the floor is yours.